So I'm not quite done milking the AC Shadows preview event, and I wanted to make a video a week later talking about 3 things that are confirmed to not be coming on release day for Assassin's Creed Shadows that I think should be obligatory to include in these games, or at least that Ubisoft should know is highly demanded by fans, and by fans I mean just me. The first thing that I want to talk about is something that's already been covered by someone who knows way more about this than me. My boy Robotopoulos made an amazing video about Assassin's Creed Shadows, and he dedicated the whole video to basically roasting the parkour and explaining why it's not as good as it could be or should be.
The parkour of Assassin's Creed Shadows is largely the same as it was in the 3 major RPG-style Assassin's Creed games. The thoughtful architecture and improved parkour functions of Mirage have not made their way into this game, and as a result, the movement overall is nowhere near where I would like for it to be and represents a regression from the series' previous release.
His video is actually a video that Ubisoft watched and commented on, which kind of gives me hope that this is something we could see post-launch, and that is height gaining ejects. Or at least ejects in any real capacity, but preferably height gaining, since it's such an important tool in a parkour system that is as stripped back as the modern games are. The reason why this is such an understandable thing to ask for is because the devs that made Assassin's Creed Mirage, the game that came directly before this, were able to implement this in their own game. They listened to fan feedback and a few months after launch implemented a patch that made ejects in the game function much more consistently, gain height, and just provide a much better parkour experience overall. It's clear that feedback did not reach the Shadows dev team in time for some reason, or they thought it wasn't worth implementing, but the hit the parkour has taken, as well as other things such as level design being worse for parkour, have made the movement system much more restrictive than it was in Mirage. And once the game comes out, and hopefully even more fans give feedback on this, we'll be able to see it in the game. I think Naoe being able to do cool side ejects and back ejects in big cities will be just about enough to make the parkour system somewhat expressive compared to what we have so far. The second thing that I want to see added is Permadeath mode. Now this one's probably a bit more of an unpopular opinion, since Assassin's Creed Shadows, unlike Mirage, which was the first game to ever add Permadeath in Assassin's Creed, AC Shadows is going to be a very long game, and the possibility or even the mere thought of losing all of your progress because of one death seems like a recipe for disaster. Like, I don't want to imagine how many broken controllers we would have if this was implemented. But I'm a bit of a masochist, and I really want to try it. And I also think, and I made a video about this that you can check out after this one, that Permadeath completely belongs in Assassin's Creed. I think it's a natural game mode that shouldn't be obligatory, that shouldn't be forced, but should be like an optional challenge for people who really want to go hardcore in these things. I think Permadeath incentivizes you to act much more like an assassin, being less reckless with your infiltration, relying more on stealth, since if you're undetected you can't be killed, and also makes it feel much more realistic, because it makes all of your actions, and more importantly all of your mistakes, have consequences. So this is something that I'd love to see at some point. Maybe it can be implemented alongside a New Game Plus, so you don't have to spend hours and hours just grinding for better gear and levels, and you can kill guards and instantly assassinate them without having to level up, because I think level-gated permadeath would be a fucking disaster. You'd have to do so much side quest nonsense, you'd have to do so much grinding just to be able to pull off permadeath without having to enter combat, which is where you're most likely to die. So I think maybe once New Game Plus comes out, and I do think that Transmog and New Game Plus are confirmed, which is why they're not in this video, I think that once those come out, I'd love to see permadeath put in once you can kind of coast through the story and all your gear is upgraded and you can just do the main missions. It'd be a really interesting challenge to see if it's even possible and how many people would be able to do it. I think it was a great addition in Assassin's Creed Mirage, and I'd want to see something like that in Assassin's Creed Shadows. And that brings me to my third feature that I want to see, or addition that I want to see once Assassin's Creed Shadows is released. What I want to see added in the post-launch rollout for Assassin's Creed Shadows is a DLC expansion that is just for Naoe. This is not to shit on Yasuke. I think he's a pretty chill dude, and many players are probably going to prefer to play as him during the main story over Naoe. Those players who want a more combat-focused experience and also want a game that is focused on sword combat, you know, trying to get a hit of that Ghost of Tsushima drug that people are waiting for with Ghost of Yote. However, many players, especially old-school fans who prefer stealth over combat, and are probably going to spend more time with the actual assassin character than Yasuke, are going to want something like this. The reason why I want a DLC with just her is because I would like it to be a linear DLC, in which parkour and stealth make up the focus of a small adventure in some remote region in Japan. Some like really linear spin-off narrative DLC. What I have in mind is something like the Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag DLC with Aveline, We took control of her for a very, very small expansion in which she has to go through several linear levels using stealth and parkour abilities to overcome challenges and fulfill some sort of story that they created for her. This is exactly what I'd want to see from Naoe. It doesn't have to be the main DLC. I know that the main DLC is probably going to be an expansion for both characters in another open region with side quests and a main plot and basically just a mini version of AC Shadows. This would be much more of a side DLC, a small DLC just for Naoe, because I would want it to be linear. I do love Assassin's Creed being open world game. I think it works perfectly, but I also always loved when those open world games we had featured small linear side missions or expansions. The Ezio trilogy was very good at this throughout its entire existence. You'd see a level that you could access where you just let the level designers take you on a cool narrative adventure where your skill and the things you've learned over your playtime are put to the test. It's always great when you don't have to make a level designer think about or worry about how a level will work within an open world context. It allows them to be much more creative, much more narratively driven, and I think that it creates a lot of memorable moments and very fun challenges that I'd love to see in Assassin's Creed Shadows. So why just Naoe? So far it doesn't really feel like Yasuke would have to be excluded from this. Well, people have been bringing this up since the previews, and I think that it's a very good point that they're making. That there is a potential problem in having made the decision to divide the playstyle between a combat character and a stealth character, especially since Yasuke can't do all that much stealth and parkour, but now he can do a little bit of combat.
AC Shadows is a game comprised of 3 parts: combat, stealth, and parkour, and only Naoe has access to all 3 of those parts. As a result, when you're playing as her, it feels like the game works because all of the game's systems are being leveraged and the assassin's fantasy is center stage. It works. But when you're playing as Yasuke, you really only have access to 1/3 of the game's systems: combat.
If the DLC expansion that I want was made for both characters, it would seriously hinder the kind of layout and missions Naoe could go on if it also has to focus on Yasuke and allow for Yasuke gameplay, because a lot of the parkour challenges wouldn't allow for his style of play, and same with the stealth puzzles. And it would also probably just make it less Assassin's Creed focused as well. I don't know how present the Creed is going to be in the game, but I certainly would want it to be the focal point of this theoretical small DLC. So yeah, no hate on Yasuke, love the guy, but I would definitely want to see what this game would look like if the areas and missions don't have to be designed to be able to be played by both characters. What happens when a level designer is given complete creative freedom, doesn't have to restrain any of his tools to make something work for the open world, or to make something work for a character who can't move or do stealth the way another character can, and just watch the designers go crazy and give us a great linear experience. I want to see climbing puzzles, parkour challenges, and stealth layouts. But I'm also curious as to what you want to see from AC Shadows post-release, since we're less than 2 months away now, and probably all the content that's been announced is all the content that the game is going to launch with. Something like, for example, legacy outfits. I'm a fucking slut for legacy outfits, so I'd love to know if you guys want to see that as well, or if you're kind of tired of them by now. But they're definitely not coming at launch. So stuff like that, let me know what you'd want to see. And I also made a video talking about 3 features that Assassin's Creed used to have that I want to see come back, and you can watch this video now.